Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to yet another edition of Tough Talking Thursday on Focus on Liberia. My name is Dennis Jai, and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. In our program tonight, we're going to be looking at protest, projects, and the president of Liberia. We will be juxtaposing the president's projects and the consistent and constant protestation. With me to discuss this is FOL Chief Political Analyst, Mr. Wilmot Weti Cooney. Mr. Cooney, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you, Dennis. Happy to be here again.
We want to say welcome to all our viewers from across the globe, those who even going to watch us later on YouTube and other social media platforms. We say welcome to Tough Talking Thursday. This is where we talk tough, and we don't need any tabata. So, almost there is not even a month that passes by without a protest in Monrovia. Also, the president is breaking ground for new projects, starting with the Bali Island, Coastal Highway, and you name it. But in the midst of this all, we still see protests going on. So is there a disconnect here? So we're going to be addressing three main questions tonight, and I want our viewers to also follow us and be part of it. We're going to be opening the phone lines very shortly so that you yourself will give your take on these things. Number one, from Bali Island to Southtown Housing Projects and the PHP Sports Facility, what do you make of the WIA project? That will be number one. So if you call us, let's speak to this issue. Number two, from June 7 to Archie Pompon setting himself on fire and the EEF locking out legislators, not a month passes by without some form of protest by aggrieved citizens. The question is, why does this continue to happen? Are we saying that the president is developing and people not paying attention, or they just want him to look bad? That's number two. Number three, so with the developments, and if you can allow me to put that in close quote, with the development of President Weah on one side, and we see constant protestation on the other side. Where is the missing link here? The projects and the protests, is there any correlation? Is there any disconnect? That's what we will be dealing with, and we want you to be a part of it. Our phone lines are on. They're on the screen. That's the 605-313-6004. The code is 791403. So, Mr. Cooning, let's start with our first question. The president's project. He sang about them, calling them the WIA project. What do you make of the president's projects?
Well, first of all, Dennis, thank you for having me on again. The projects that the administration or the president is implementing, there is no doubt that these projects have a direct impact on the lives of people that live in the area in which the projects are implemented. For example, if you take rural housing, like you referenced the Southtown housing projects, the history of low-cost housing in our country has been a history that is limited only to Montserrado County, specifically the Monrovia area. Besides concession areas, this is the first time in the history of our country that low-cost housing is being spread throughout the country. Now, the impact may be very small, and it is because of the enormity of the problem. You're talking about the entire housing challenge that the country is facing, both in urban areas and in rural areas. So the skill that is needed to generate the kind of impact on the life sector of the population is so huge that if you compare what the current government is doing, it may appear that it does not have that kind of national impact. But I think it is a beginning. It is a point to start. The Chinese says every 1,000 miles start with the first step. I think this is a first good step towards extending local housing throughout the country, where Monrovia or Mosorado County is not the only area where people will benefit. In terms of the other projects you're talking about, like Bali Island and other things like that, these are the dreams of the president. I'm sure with the availability of resources, with the availability of funds, these projects, will come to fruition. So I
Right.
think the president mind is in the right place, but it
Right.
just takes some time for some of these projects to be completed and to make
So,
the kind of impact that they should make.
so here's my question.
Mm.
I know you're not part of the government, so you may not know this, but how are these projects, you know, derived at? What goes into planning to say, okay, we need a housing project in Sasstown, or we need a sport complex at PHP, or we need a hospital in Sheffield or on the Robertsfield Highway. What goes into this planning? How do we arrive that this is the need? What are the analysis that go into this? Because the projects must impact, they must have a reason behind them. Do you know?
Well, like you say, I'm not in the government, so I don't know how the actual policies are coming together. But if you can recall, the other time we were on this show and we were talking about what informed the president. And when we listened to the president seemed to be impacted by his practical experience, his practical life experiences, traveling into these areas and seeing the level of underdevelopment, seeing the lack of uh, uh, facilities and infrastructure that are kind of present in every or in most civilized society. For example, take Monrovia. I mean, Dennis, it is unimaginable that from the beginning of our country and even coming to the modern time, we built a city with no park, no park, no park. There is no recreation park in Monrovia.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you don't need to read a specific book or
Right.
you don't need to have a planning degree to know that, you know what? We need to put something in this city where people will go for recreation, where people will, cool off, maybe
Right.
play games. So I think these are the things that inform the president. And with regard to the housing issue, I listened to the president one time that, look, he was completely shocked that the same kind of houses that he left in his hometown of Sastan more than 40 years ago are the same kind of houses that are still there. So it is these life experiences, I want to believe,
Right.
that are driving
Right.
the president's agenda in some of these areas.
And again, I understand that, but he's the president now, right? Take for
Right.
instance, when Obama got in power, he said he wanted shovel-ready projects because there was a reason behind that. The economy went down, so those projects were supposed to create jobs for people. So there's something behind it. But to say, okay, I was in Sasa, I was sleeping in a tarpaulin house, so I'm going to go there and build a house or build an estate, that doesn't tell us much, right? Are people getting employed as a result of this?
Of course,
What is the impact? What is it supposed to do in the short term and the long term?
no, but
Besides
then
the old feel good feelings. Take for
well, no,
instance, there is
then
also mhm,
no, it's not just good feelings. I mean, all of these projects are being implemented, are being built by, to the best of my knowledge, these projects are being built by Liberian contractors. Even the community roads that are built around Monrovia, most of them are being built by Liberian contractors. The local houses that are being constructed, whether it is Sastan, whether it is Grand Jude, whether it is Bond County, all of these things are being built by local contractors in a short term, providing employment for the people. What I will concede is the fact that the impact may not be felt, and it's not only because that the government is not doing what it's supposed to do, but the scale of the problem. Look, sometimes Liberians will have to show some appreciation to the level of underdevelopment that has plagued that country for a long time. The level of underdevelopment is so staggering to the point that even if you're trying to do something to improve the situation, it pales I mean, in comparison to the problem itself. So you're talking about a whole country that have no program for rural housing, a whole country that has never established a program for rural housing. This is our first attempt, to take action in this direction.
Right. So let me stop you right there. So, like in the case of rural housing, the project must be maintained, right? Those housing must be maintained. Are people in Southern going to pay their rent so as to help sustain that project? Or what is it going to do? Because you're talking about a time when the economy is bad.
Well, I don't know, and I mean, I'm going to be honest here. I don't know the mechanism, the maintenance, the selection process. I don't know all of these things. But given the fact that this is serious money that the government is expending on these things, I want to assume that some of these background work, some of these background programs are being put into place, or else, I mean, why would the government waste such huge amount of money? So I don't know. But at the same time, the fact that I don't know doesn't mean that the kind of safeguard we're talking about, that those safeguards are not in place.
Right. So let's say the safeguard. So in your own, because you don't know this, right? So I can push you on it. But in your own estimation, right? What are some of the things that should be done? What are some of the targets area a project must target so as to bring in immediate returns for the people? Because the economy is bad. For in the case of the housing project, what do you think needs to be done for that to reap its benefits? Now, we also see a sport facility placed in the phase of ATS, right? It's like, okay, what really is the president thinking? I mean, what is it that's going to generate from that you think going to make us, maybe give people employment? In your own estimation, what do you think is supposed to happen to those projects so as to give the needed results?
Well, no, first of all, you got to look at the goal of the project. Let's look at the goal of the project. The goal of the project, for example, in the case of housing, is to alleviate the housing situation facing Liberians. According to one of the studies that is available, Liberia is in such a deficit in terms of housing that I think the country need to build about between 15 to 30,000 housing units per year to solve the housing problem for the country. So the goal is to provide these kind of housing to improve the living condition of the people. When you if you talk about the parks and other things, especially the sport facility, that's just the development of the youth. I mean, the youth need something. They need a place to develop their talents. I mean, you look all over the world. We were cheering the other day for this Liberian boy who represented our country at the Olympics. But to go to the Olympics, you need facilities to train. You need all of these things that, in addition to, but besides government employment, that youth can use to develop their talents and create, other avenues for their own self-worth. That may not necessarily be to government employment, but, at least Olympian athletes and all of these things. You need all of these facilities, you need them. And for us to be a serious country in these international sport, we need all of these things that will train our youth, train the young minds, so that they can get in the competitive stage of some of these competitions.
So talking about the youth, right? I don't know if you watched Lina Panorama the last time, where Kwame Weeks went to this place called Zimbabwe, and you have like 500 youths, the youngest being 16 years old, in an unfinished building, very unsanitary condition. There they are using drugs. How do we, tackle this? So if you look at that and look at a playground, where you think the money is supposed to be going?
Yeah, but then it's let them make the assumption that because they're developing a playground, so efforts are not being made to combat some of the social problems that you talk about.
Share with me if you know them, if you know any of those efforts besides.
Well, I don't know the specifics, but I know there is ongoing effort. There are ongoing effort to fight, to combat drugs. There are ongoing effort to.
So tell me about those ongoing efforts. Give me an example specific, because when Kwame Weeks went there, he's the boss of Labrador News Agency. There's nothing put in place. Darren Delorme say he's building something. You build a house, people on drugs, they go to that house. What's going to happen? They will still continue to use drugs, right? So I'm just saying priorities, right? So you brought about the youth. So instead of maybe rehabilitating those youth, you are building a playground.
Yeah, but there are other rehabilitative programs in the country, Dennis. So we can we
Give me an
can
example.
we can. But, I mean, you got to. There are programs being implemented by the Federation of Liberian Youth, all kinds of youth organizations. I mean, so you can't say that because we have a drug problem facing the youth, so we can't implement other problems that will elevate the youth. That's the kind of statement I don't want us to make.
No. I'm not making that statement. I'm just talking about priorities. What is it? Because basic
Both of
economics
all
is
of them can be priority. It's not either or.
no. What
It's
I
not
mean,
either.
no, resources are scarce, right? We don't have all the money, so we
No,
want to put money somewhere where there's impact.
yeah,
Okay.
but even with scarce resources, you don't usually when it come to the operation of the public goods, the delivery of the public goods, despite the fact that resources are scarce, you don't get in an either or. For example, we don't get in an either or whether we will pay doctors or we will pay teachers. We do the best that we can do to balance, to manage what we have. Well, if there's a little we can give to teachers, if there's little we can give to doctors, the same way as can we do something, can we build some facilities that will improve the youth, and can we also do something that will combat some of the problems we're talking about that affect the ability of youth, like drugs, like prostitution. You got a whole gender ministry. I want to believe they got a whole host of
No,
resources that go
yeah.
after
Let me
those
give you an
things.
example. You mentioned gender. There is a SGBV roadmap.
Mm.
Till this day, they have milestone. At this point, we're going to do this. At this point, we're going to do this. If you look at that, go back and look at that roadmap. They have not even completed 25%, and it's supposed to be completed 2020 next year. There's nothing there. But let's leave that for a minute and let's go to protest. Right now, there is a lot of protest going on. As I said, from June 7th, we saw that massive protest. The following year, another big protest. We all watched Archie Popon setting himself on fire. And now the latest one is the EEF went and blocked the gate to the Capitol. What do these protests tell you? And let me give you two choices here. Is it mean that our democracy is mature enough now that we can handle protests, or are we in a chaotic situation, or is this the only language president we understands? What do you make of these protests?
Well, let me tell you, I think is a little bit of all the areas that you touch, but it's more so of the fact that I wouldn't say our democracy has matured. I would say that our democracy is maturing. The democracy is maturing, and this is one of the hope I have for Liberia, and this is why some of us we still have confidence in Liberia that the country will improve. I mean, protestation is good for democracy. Once it is done in a peaceful manner, in a non-violent manner, I mean, it is good for the people to make their petition, to make their grievances heard. So that is good when it is done in an orderly and peaceful manner. And it speaks to the fact that our democracy, is enjoying growth, is enjoying some level of interaction with the people. So that is good. Some of it, we cannot also dismiss the fact that, some of the protests may be instigated by agent provocateurs, but it's also within their right to do so. I mean, the Constitution don't distinguish who can protest and who cannot protest. So I don't even want to go that far. Once the protests are done in a peaceful manner, once they are done in an orderly manner, that's fine. My only regret is that sometimes the protests are misdirected. And again, it is their right to misdirect the protests. Take, for example, the EFF protest. They went and changed the legislator, the national, the national legislature because of these allotment that legislators made to themselves. Well, that may be a wonderful idea, but in the discussion that followed in that act of protest, you hear the EFF man say his goal is to make we are one term president. I think that's a misdirection because the allocation that he protesting is not given by we are, it's given by the legislators. So instead of him saying, look, the goal of our protest is to make these legislators that are allotting to themselves public resources to make them one-term senator or one-term representative, he immediately shift to making we are one-term president. That's a misdirection, but it's all within his right to misdirect, you see. And sometimes, yes, I see people go to the United Nations and to the U.S. Embassy and other things like that to carry their petition. It's all good. But the people that take action for our country, they're sitting right there at the national legislature. Yeah. So I want protesters to direct their protest to their elected representatives. These are the people who are supposed to petition. So for me, I'm all for protest. Once it is orderly, it's peaceful, every Liberian get a right to express their views, to express their grievances, whether it is at the executive mansion, whether it is at the legislature, whatever forum. But let us all ask that those protests be peaceful, non-violent, and then we are all good.
Let me bring in our first caller. Caller, your name and where you calling from, please.
From Washington, D.C.
Go ahead, caller. Call your name again.
Jimmy Eastman, calling from Washington, D.C.
Jimmy, our topic tonight, protests, projects, and the president. What's your take?
Yes. Hello to your guest, Mr. Cooney. I very respect your opinion. You always provide a balanced argument, and I respect that. But, first of all, looking at the way we've divided funds or to carry out development in Liberia over the history has been too focused on Monrovia. That's what Mr. Cooney was saying. We should have put a lot more focus on the other parts of the country to bring and include them in
Jimmy,
the development.
Jimmy, can I cut you off small? Let me get an international caller.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, caller, your name and where you calling from?
My name is Marcus Weir. Hello?
Marcus, you are live. Go ahead.
Okay. My name is Marcus Weir and I call you from East Africa, Nairobi, Kenya.
Oh, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. Let me also commend you for the show and also commend the studio guest.
Thank you.
Welcome. I want to talk on the issue of protest.
Okay.
What baffles me a lot is that when I watch on YouTube the protest that was directed at the national legislature, seeing our colleagues chain the entrance of the national legislature, almost beating those poor security officers. It was very appalling. That's not advocacy. Advocacy, you must have a goal. You understand? Yeah. So whatever that was done on that day, they missed the mark. Because you can protest peacefully. Why should you behave like a rebel? We all know what those legislators did. It was wrong. Because if you are allocating funds to yourselves, how are you going to check as to how those money were used? Who's going to check you? Nobody's going to check you. Because the main function of the national legislature is not to implement projects. They have three cardinal responsibilities, and those responsibilities are lawmaking, oversight, and representation. We did not elect them to implement projects. That's not their role.
Right.
So if any Liberian will not vote for somebody because you did not implement project in your district, is saddening. It's probably is on the issue of ignorance.
Right.
Then come to the issue of the national park. I live in East Africa, specifically in Nairobi. We have somewhere we call the Uhuru Park. And the national park is not restricted to youth alone. You have other adults, some of them are working, some of them are not working. They sometimes go there in the day hours, they have farms and they do all sorts of things. But how will you have a city like Monrovia? You don't have anywhere beside the cinema, beside video clubs and nightclubs and other places. So it is necessary. And looking at the history of where the sport park is being constructed, it makes sense.
Okay.
That particular area, 13 persons were murdered in cold blood. So having such a facility will will change the minds of those people who witnessed those killings that were done there.
Okay.
So I believe that the park is not a misplaced.
Right.
The president, I must commend the president. I'm not a supporter of the president.
So Michael.
What? Yes.
Let's look at the big picture, starting with the protest. So what does the constant protestation tell you? Does it mean that the people are suffering too much and that's why they are showing their anger? Does it mean that when they negotiate, because sometimes it's for pay? Archie Popon set himself on fire for pay. The last time it was police brutality that killed a driver. So what does that tell? Are we in a place that the administration cannot manage well, or the people are suffering, therefore they're coming up with these kind of actions? They're being very creative with the kind of protests that they do. And then for the projects, are those projects being misdirected? Is Mr. Weir addressing the wrong problems? Those are the two issues I want you to speak to quickly. You have 1 minute.
Okay, thank you. Let me speak to the issue of protest. The first thing, you look at the intention of those people who are protesting. Because you can tell me that you are protesting for, salary, and you are causing, destruction of property. It is not called for, my brother. Sometimes tears run from my eyes whenever I look on the social media. I see some of the things that our brothers and sisters are doing. Liberians are suffering. We agree. Even you live in the U.S. There are so many. I do monitor VOA. I do monitor CNN. There are so many protestations that go on in the U.S. There is no country that is exempted from protest. Okay. So it is their right to protest.
Right. But what does the protest tell you? Right. What does the protest tell you? Meaning those who are protesting, they just want trouble, or what is it? Just quickly.
No, some of the protests are right. If people are outing for salary, it's not bad. They have to get a salary. Because I cannot work for 30 days. Then if more ends, I don't get my salary. I have responsibility.
Thank you.
It's a right to protest. But you have to do it in an orderly manner.
I got you.
That's what I'm saying.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Welcome.
All right.
Yes.
Mr. Conan, before I bring Jimmy in, I know you agree with the caller.
Oh no, absolutely. And this is what I'm saying. The protest is not, look, you're talking about it. The protest is not in isolation, Dennis. There is what I call increased militancy that has overtaken our country. I don't know whether it is the remnants of the war. Yes, obviously before the war there were protests. I mean, university students protested.
Because the president is bad off. That's why.
Well, not because the president is bad off. I mean, look at the protests at the university. Let's take one classic case. The University of Liberia announced a policy on e-learning. We expect students to react to that policy, but without even engaging the administration of the university to understand the policy. University students immediately took to the street, not only within the confines of the campus, but extended the protest. We used to be at the university. During my term, we protested for buses. When classes were being sent to Fender, and there were no buses to carry students to Fender. But before we started our protest, the student leadership met with the University of Liberia authorities. So some of the time you have to meet with people, because protest by itself solves nothing. Sometimes it is discussion. Sometimes protest should only be used for awareness. And like the brother said, these people when they protest, when you check the goal of their protest, it is contradictory. Legislators allocating money to themselves. Instead of making them non-elected, you say that the president you will make unelected. So you see the disconnect.
Thank you, Mr. Cooney. Let me bring back Jimmy. Jimmy, go ahead. Thanks for your patience.
Hey, let me speak to the protest. What baffles me about the protest today? Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. How you doing?
Yes. Okay.
Here, I'm Jim Yamper from Washington, D.C.
Oh, hold on, James. Hold on. We got a call on the line. Go ahead, Mr. Eastman.
Okay, so like I was saying, the protests, that what confuses me, when lawmakers were making exorbitant salaries, okay, hundreds of thousands of dollars, no one even thought to protest or to shine light on that. Why now are they doing it? Some of this protest, if it doesn't have direction, then it's just noise. It has to have a goal. Not awareness is one thing, but we need a definitive goal and an outcome. We want to see
Jimmy,
the legislatures put proper laws in place.
Right.
But they never protest like this before. So I think one of the things you were mentioning, you have to control the narrative as best as you can, because you're going to have that. You have to control the narrative. In other words, your actions and your public statements that you come out make will help people calm them down or get them to understand the situation.
Jimmy, let me stop you. Why are these protests constantly happening? That's what I want you to speak to. Let us not, deal with individual, but because every time there's protest, either they are asking for pay, either somebody get missing mysteriously and they are protesting. Something is always going on. So why do you think these protests are always happening?
All participants are muted and they can unmute themselves.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
Control the narrative. Because you have to manage the expectations of people. That's what you have to do. That's how you keep them under control. That's how you keep them satisfied, by managing their expectations. If you're not
Jimmy, I disagree. People are not taking pay. How do you manage that expectation if you don't take pay for 10 months? What are you supposed to do?
Well, some of the projects that we're talking about, the projects,
right.
Okay, projects have to be tied with to economic development. Okay, so that should be the proper focus. Give people a way to prosper. Give people a way to gain a living. Okay, building a housing or infrastructure should be tied to an economic innovation that the people in that area will be able to earn a living as well. But these things, these projects that are silos, that are not tied directly to innovation and to economic progress, will be relics in the future. You have to tie everything, every project, every development to
let me push you, Jimmy.
Benefit.
Jimmy, so, and I like that point you said, tie it to economic benefit. So looking at the Coastal Highway, the Bali Islands, 14 military hospital, housing projects, but are these, in your view, are these tied to any economic benefit?
Well, that's the point I'm making here. It's good to have a hospital. It's good to have highways, but because of the dire economic situation in the country, your projects now have to be linked directly to some economic innovation.
I get that, and I like that point. I got it. I like it. So tough. Yeah. Is the WIA project? Are the WIA projects doing that?
Well, this is the thing. What was considered? I don't. Only year of a hospital. But what do we need? What kind of economic activity do we need around a hospital? And that is, I think, if the administration allows serious planners who can connect their projects to economic activities, we'll see people calming down, we'll see less protest, and things will be better.
Thank you.
But I think just building projects without doing that, you will not have no effect. You can't eat the building.
Exactly. Thank you.
You have to connect it to some economic innovation.
Thank you, Jimmy. That's what I wanted to get out of you.
Can I come here a little bit?
Yeah, come in, and then we bring in Mr. Nyafo from Maryland.
Let's say one of the things the president has been accused of, one of the positive things, very positive thing that he has been accused of is completing the projects of the previous administration. And I've said here consistently on this show that despite my many disagreements with the past leadership, what that leadership did was to develop some real blueprints when it comes to Liberia development, be it in the area of education, be it in the area of infrastructure. It was only the implementation of those blueprints is where they fell short. So you actually about.
I never heard you say that you are cherry picking now.
Because
you are cherry picking because you want. I mean, that's the only time you are praising the previous government, because you are saying now that we are building on those projects.
Dennis, I praised the previous government on their building of integrity institutions. I did that before.
I remember that. But this new one, you're trying to sneak it in.
So what I'm telling you, I'm trying to give you answer to your question. Are you afraid of the answer I'm trying to give you?
You're giving me answer, but I want for you to be truthful.
So what I'm telling you, you talk about the economic viability of the projects. I'm telling you, most of the roads that are being built today, those roads were properly studied and they were determined to pass through some the major economic corridors of the country. So they're not just roads that Joria take from the top of his head to build. The Ganta Tapeta Zredru Highway passes through a major economic corridor. Now you and I will from the southeast.
The Bali Islands.
Give me a chance now. You cherry picking. You cherry picking.
No, you cherry picking.
the coastal highway. You know that highway connects a whole swath of the country where we have our forest resources, our diamond resources. So you cannot argue that it is not an economically viable project. So most of these projects are economically viable. And this is what the people see in this president. He's not just there to trumpet his own thing, but he's continuing the policies that are good for Liberia. Housing is another area, you know.
You made that point earlier. Let me bring in Kesali Dobo. Kesali Dobo, you are live. What's your take?
Thank you very much, Mr. John.
Thank you.
I appreciate the time, and thanks to Mr. Conin too for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, on the issue of, let me speak on the issue of protest first. And I would strongly want to condemn the ESFL for locking the door of the national legislature, one, and beating on the security. The security you are beating on is someone who is suffering. Legislative staffers have been protesting for their pay. So the security almost fall like within your category. So if you say you are protesting for the common people, I think you are not protecting that security on ground. You're the convincing to tell me why you are doing what you are doing. And going as far as locking the door of the national legislature, locking their fence, out of ground disrespect. I'm in favor of the protest. Don't get me wrong. You know me for that. I want the protest.
Right.
But let the protest be done with some level of respect, some level of stability.
Right.
You know? And because of the way in which he did the protest, the wrong has now overshadowed the entire protest.
Right. So that, Mr. Dobo, that is just one protest. Let's speak to the overall protestation.
Okay, yeah, there's another one. And what I think happening is that I think the only government understands is protest too. Because every time people protest, that is when the government decides to take action, which is very wrong. I don't think you should wait for people to work for over 10, 15 months and you cannot pay them. When they come to the protest, what you tell them at the end of the day is that you give them maybe 3 months. How can you pay somebody 3 months all of 1 month? That's been very insensitive. And you claim that this government is a government that represents the poor people, government for the poor. That's been wicked. And I think one of the reasons why these things are happening to the government is that there are too many misplaced priorities. You know? So got involved into too many things that is not strangulating them. That's about the purple house thing they said they were building. Mr. Jai, you are getting purple housing for the poor people. You claim to be for the poor people. But some of those houses that you are building for the poor people cost over $35,000. I think those are the cheapest. How many person who is working in the government that is making $150 will be able to buy one of those houses that you are building for them? That is for the poor people. And on the other hand, you tell us that someone with dual nationality cannot own a property in Liberia. So telling the houses that you are building, that you are investing the money in the country money, who's going to buy them? The poor man who is working in government or some government official who is stealing will just buy those houses and end up renting to the very poor people. The market, for example, they are building. Building market is not a bad thing. But look at the economy. The simplest definition of a market is where buyers and sellers meet to our business.
Right.
So if a man is not taking pay at the end of the month and you build market, what's the use of the market?
Thank you.
The sellers and there will be no buyer. Killing the entire definition of market. So that's one of the things I think disturbing this government. Priorities have been misplaced, and so things are just not going the way it should be going for them.
So what you think the priorities should be when you say they are misplaced? What they're supposed to be doing and they are doing something else?
Okay. Let's say, for example, I've always said in Liberia, our major problem right now, for any government, not just our government, it was the same of an government, it has been the same from history, from time immemorial. Our first and most important thing right now is to clamp down on corruption. First and most important thing to do, invest all our resources, clamp down on corruption. That should be our major priorities right now.
Thank you.
Good governance, the rule of law. There are too many bad governance going on. The poor cannot get justice. Look at the justice system.
Thank you.
Government are all corrupt. There is not one you can go to and depend on the essay and go to this government, this branch of government to solve my problem. No, not one. The executive, the judiciary, the legislative branch, they are all the same equally. So planning down corruption should be the priority for any government if we want to win for modern Liberia.
Thank you. Thank you, Gasali. Mr. Conan, we have one last point we want to touch here before we but let me bring you some comments here. One comment I want to read before I even do anything is this one from Martin Brown. He said, "Ja, what actually will you get from Mr. Conan tonight? The show is not balanced at all. We got one-way ticket to the southeast with Mr. coming on board." Okay, let me answer that. Stuff happens, and so the other guests, 3 of them, stuff happens, they were not able to be, and that's why we have Mr. Cooney alone. So, Mr. Cooney, before we go to our next, let's take a short break and we'll be right back.
At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Ja.
Welcome back to Focus on Liberia Tough Talking Thursday. Our topic today, protest, projects, and the president. Mr. Cooney, the bottom line here, we talk about the protests, we talk about the projects. We see that we have development, as you agree, going on one side. And then we also have constant protest, right? What is the connection here? Or is there a disconnect? My question to you is the country being developed by President Weah and the noisy minority just making noise to make the president look bad? Or is Mr. Weah living in La La Land, that he's not directing or addressing the main issues on the ground here? That's my question.
Well, my answer to that is simple. The government is doing the best that they can do to address the problems of the country. And the protestation you're talking about, Dennis, it will be part of our democratic process. There will be people, for whatever reason, whether good or bad, that will always find the time to come and express their views, whatever the views are. You will always have that situation. You have an active opposition in the country. The opposition will also want to make itself relevant by analyzing and criticizing whatever the government is doing. That's the role of the opposition. So for me, again, like I said, the protest is not what bothers me. Is the way and manner in which protests are executed. The way I got my concern. Once they are done peacefully, once they are done in an orderly manner, I don't really care, because in a democratic society, there is nothing you can do to stop protests. People will always protest for different reasons. But in terms of development, in terms of the agenda of the president, the government, given their limitations, given their challenges, they're doing the best that they can do, and the Liberian people are seeing what the government is doing. And to my brother who said,
these things, are they what the people really want? Because the people needs are not being met. That's why they are in the street every day.
Dennis, we all talking in relative terms. I mean, anybody, what you saying is relative to what other people. There are some people who say, you know what, we wanted the Japan freeway to be completed. Other people say that. There are other people who say, you know what, we want a new market, we want to be in a new market. So we all speaking in relative languages here, depending on where we stand. There are other people who say, we know what, we want our fee highway to be completed and lighter. There are other people who say we want the electricity to go through our neighborhoods. So
in other words, we want the raw fee highway, even if we don't eat for the next 15 days.
Dennis, if we use the eating business, Liberia will not develop. Yeah, but if we use the eating business, the country will not develop. Country people make sacrifices for development. Ask the Chinese.
Tell me,
I'm telling you,
people sacrifice our children just to have the
well, let me tell you something. Countries that have developed, they sacrifice generation, as the Chinese, as the Russians. I mean, Liberians want to be developed on a silver platter. I've always told you, the countries that we always point to have been successful, their success was not donated to them by anybody. They work for their success. They sacrifice for their success. So if we keep making the eating and drinking beer argument, then if our priority is to eat and drink beer, then let us say so. Let eat and drink beer. But there are painful experiences in any developmental struggle, in any developmental arena. There are sacrifices that the nation make. There are sacrifices that the country make. So let us not, sell the kuwe to our people that development has no pain, and that the next government that will come will develop the country without pain, especially in a country where nobody pays tax.
What is your definition of development?
My definition of development, a government that can get the people clean water, the government that can get the people electricity, the government that can build roads for the people, the government that will feed the people. Those are development.
What's about the human capacity development?
Oh yeah, education and other things. They are all development. Health, all of those things are development.
I got a text message here for you. The person is writing, say, Brother Kunin, did you see the protest of CDC when Ellen was president? A protest is a protest, and the only thing the state has to do is protect protesters and citizens' rights.
But the person who wrote that to him and said, we're not saying different things. I'm agreeing with the person that protest is an inherent part of democracy, except that it must be done in an orderly manner. I'm not condemning protesters. I'm just saying your protest must be plain. It must have a goal. If you protesting for legislators allocating salaries to themselves, it must not just be protest. There must be other actions you're willing to take within the democratic space to put that kind of habit into check. That's what I'm saying. So I don't know. The man said we agree on the same thing.
Right. I just wanted to share it.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Talvina Cole. I am an activist, and you're watching Focus on Liberia.
All right, let's go to our comments. We have our viewers here. They are commenting. I read 1, 2. Martin say, with all the millions he had, why he couldn't go to Southtown to make his impact felt? until becoming president. Bacchus Matthew, we don't even have a decent mall, public library, public parks in Monrovia. We actually need Monrovia City Mall, etc. Mayfield Deco say, give some specific instead of just speaking from the blue sky. Bacchus, agree with you. Very good point, Mr. Cooney. I don't know what Mr. Cooney said that you... Mr. Cooney, when these playgrounds are built and the drug abuse youths are not rehabilitated, they will surely destroy these facilities. So why can't the government tackle the rehabilitation before building this youth infrastructure? Amos Songo, trying to defend something that is indefensible is challenging. The government has no programs in place to tackle the rising drug use by the youth in Liberia, period. Doesn't your guest know that? Blokonje say, Mwalemu Blokonje Jackson is Cooney CDC supporter. Then he's carrying on what he's carrying on is for fanatical and then intellectual. You get the point. Michaels, who earlier called, said, our mentality is too low when it comes to protestation. Most of these protestations are done just to promote few people. I disagree with you. Okay, I read this. Sam Wallow, it is manufactured protest. I've been saying this for a while. All bought and paid for the usual suspects. So the protests are fake. You believe that, Mr. Cooney?
I reserve my comment.
He said it started with the false claims of the missing billions, which was proven false. Oh, I know. Now I know where he's going with this. Amos said protests are the byproduct of poor governance. Liberia is suffering much more now. That's why they've grown impatient.
I guess we can say the same thing here in the United States, where people protesting every day.
These projects are not meeting the socio-economic needs of the people, putting money in their pockets. Nigo Kofi said Bali Island could contribute massively to our tourism industry. When hotels and other businesses are constructed at Bali Island, it will attract many tourists to that area. They could mean creation of jobs and other economic activities. Mountain Brown is busy tonight. Ja, are you seeing what is actually taking place at the CDC headquarters after the youth put out those strong worded statements, giving the president ultimatum of 45 days to finish their vocational school? Emmanuel Jackson, every day we in the diaspora has to assist our people for basic home needs. It's increased under we are rain to help the Liberians at home. He said we're helping more now. Benjamin Sewell, look at this other one here living in luxury, talking crap. You can express yourself without talking like that. Why the masses that voted for the CDC government living in abject poverty? He's one of those that care less about others when he's enjoying. Mr. Cooney, are you enjoying?
Oh yeah, I'm enjoying. Tell the brother I'm enjoying very much so at my own expense and at my own resources. I went to school well.
Kai Jabo say, Dennis, your guess is a pure sedition. There is nothing you can do to convince him. Mr. Cooney, are you a sedition?
I am a supporter. Again, let me state, I am a supporter of President Weah. There are hundreds of thousands of other Liberians that support President Weah that are not sedition. So the fact that you support President Weah and then they automatically make you a sedition is just nonsensical.
So the president, the projects, the protest. Can you draw a line through all three?
Oh, those are very good. Those are very good features of our democracy. The president is doing what he has to do. Citizens, for whatever reason, are also doing what they're supposed to do by expressing their grievances. So I don't really see, if I would draw any line, it would be a line that our democracy is working. Our democracy is vibrant. The president is leading. The people, it is their right to respond to how the president leads. It is our right as analysts to interpret the people's response, like what we are doing here. It is opposition's responsibility to scrutinize the government and to also make their point on the political landscape. So again, I'm not bothered by the issue of protest. One, it is done peacefully and lawfully. Look, Liberia got all kind of protests. You have the very people who stealing electricity, protesting. They want light. You know, all the contradictions are there. People who don't pay for electricity, but they want electricity. You know, you find people even that don't have homes. They protesting for water. Where they going to get the water? You ain't got no home to get water to. So there are a lot of things we can dissect the protest. Despite the dissection, I still believe that they have the right to do what they are doing. You got a whole electricity industry that been crying for power theft. The people don't pay the electricity bill, but they're protesting for power as if to say it will come on demand. You and myself, we don't protest for power here. We pay our power bill, and at the end, we receive our power. So this is what I'm saying.
I wish it was the same in Liberia, that people can pay and receive. But go ahead.
You know, they don't pay the protest, you see. So what I'm saying, some of these protests need to have an end goal. You see, my brother Lobo was here now, he would say the thing we did. When we were protesting, we had an end goal. We wanted multi-party democracy. That was our end goal. You don't get protest for the sake of protest. You see, the protest will have to have meaning. You have to protest, you have to organize, and you have to fight to change the condition that you're protesting. You don't protest one day, change the legislature, and go sleep home and be your chest as a revolutionary. You know, it's a waste of energy in the democratic space. Protest, organize, and change the condition that is confronting you.
Let me read the last comments, and then we'll go to our Tabata session. Dave Jad says, any development that does not improve the quality of life of the people is mere beautification. This is the sad reality. Infrastructure development without sustainable employment is useless. Liberia has been this way, and folks don't seem to know how to make it right. You agree?
Brother Jai is entitled to his opinion. I mean, like I say, people constructing houses. I mean, those houses are not being magically planted. People building roads. The roads are not being magically laid out. People connecting airport. These are human beings doing these things. So employment is generated as some of these activities are being done. So to say that they are done without zero employment, that's not true.
Thank you. Let's take this short break and we'll go to our section, Tabata. So you can tell me the Tabata that you've seen.
It's too late, baby, go to bed. I don't need your Tabata. Baby, oh, your Tabata. I gotta go away, your Tabata. My baby, oh, I don't need your Tabata. My baby, oh. Baby, I'm tired, I don't need your Tabata.
All right. That's the song, I Don't Need Your Tabata. And so, Mr. Kune, any Tabata you want to speak of tonight?
Yeah, there is a Tabata that I heard from the Senate Chairman on Security and Intelligence and Defense, Senator Zako of the Liberty Party. When the senator told the Liberian people that there is something he called military sympathy to Mr. Brandon Samukai, that there will be a backlash of military sympathy. I think that one of this is not only the Tabata, but one of the sad things that I could hear from an elected official of Liberia, that someone who is convicted for a criminal offense, that we should waive that crime because there is some sympathy that is coming from the military. And that is important because this guy is the chairman on intelligence. And the question we want to ask, is that the intelligence he's receiving from the intelligence community? What does it mean by saying that the military will have a sympathy to the former defense minister because he's been defense minister for 12 years? That is complete Tabata. So are we saying now that we cannot prosecute police officers, chief of police, because we are afraid of police sympathy? We cannot go after teachers because we are afraid of student sympathy. We can't prosecute doctors because we are afraid of doctor sympathy. I mean, when elected officials that are supposed to provide leadership in our country, when they speak in that kind of language, that we should waive our penal code because of standing, because of the social connection of people who violate our penal code, then that's the greatest tapata. That's one of the tapata that is in our country. This is a lawmaker. He is the chairman on intelligence. He is insinuating that there will be a military sympathy. And if we have a serious legislature, they will ask Mr. Zako, what does it mean? What does it mean, military sympathy? Is he insinuating a military coup? Is he insinuating a military disorder? What does it mean?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Kune. And we want to thank our viewers for being here tonight with us on Tough Talking Thursday. Tomorrow at 6, you're going to have the literary hour with Jackie Sayer and Professor K. Moses Namwe. Then at 8 o'clock, we're going to have the debate of the year. Samuel Jackson against Lawrence Kennedy. The topic is Liberia much better now than it was before 1980? That will be the topic for discussion. On Sunday, we're going to have our open mic show called What Catch Your Heart. You don't want to miss any of those happening right here on Focus on Liberia. Until then, on behalf of all of us here at Focus on Liberia, we say thank you for watching Tough Talking Thursday. We never end our broadcast without telling you that in spite of our differences, whether you are for CDC, ANC, LPP, or no party, we are all Liberians and we must do whatever it takes to make Liberia the glorious land of liberty. Good night and God bless you.
We are Liberians.